The rain comes down in sheets, turning the city streets into rivers of neon and shadow. He sits alone on a bench in a forgotten corner of the park, hands trembling, eyes fixed on nothing. His name is Daniel, 32 years old, 8 years of service, 3 deployments, and he came home 6 months ago to a life that doesn't recognize him anymore. Tonight, he's made a decision. Tonight, the noise in his head finally stops. He doesn't hear the footsteps at first. Just the rain hammering the concrete, the distant wail of sirens, the relentless drumming inside his skull that never, ever goes quiet. His hand moves to his pocket where the pills sit in their orange bottle, enough to make everything fade to black. He's written no note. Who would read it? His ex-wife moved on months ago. His parents stopped asking how he's doing because the answer is always the same lie. Fine. His buddies from the unit are scattered across the country, fighting their own wars in living rooms and parking lots and bathroom mirrors. Then a voice cuts through the rain. Small, young, unexpected. "Hey, mister, why are you crying?" Daniel's head snaps up, standing 3 feet away as a kid, maybe 10 or 11, soaked to the bone, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big and sneakers held together with duct tape. The kid's eyes are sharp, watchful, the kind of eyes that have seen too much too soon. Daniel realizes his face is wet, and not just from the rain. He wipes his cheeks with the back of his hand, tries to pull himself together, but the armor he's worn for months cracks just a little. "I'm not," he says, voice rough as gravel. "Just rain." The kid tilts his head, unconvinced. Rain don't make your shoulders shake like that. Daniel stares at this small stranger who has no business being in a park alone at midnight. No business noticing a broken man on a bench. No business asking questions that slice through the numbness like a blade. He wants to tell the kid to go away, to leave him alone, to let him finish what he came here to do. But something in those eyes holds him, something familiar. It's the look of someone who knows what it means to be invisible, to be one bad night away from disappearing completely. "What are you doing out here, kid?" Daniel asks, deflecting. "It's late. Where are your parents?" The kid shrugs, pulls the jacket tighter. "Around. What about yours?" "I'm grown." "Don't look grown right now. Look like you're hurting." The words hit harder than any IED blast. Daniel's jaw tightens. He hasn't cried in front of another human being since he held his dying friend in a desert halfway around the world, whispering promises he couldn't keep, watching the light go out of eyes that trusted him. He's carried that moment every single day since, along with 100 others. The faces, the sounds, the smells, the weight of decisions made in seconds that haunt him for lifetimes. "I'm fine." He lies again. "You should get somewhere dry." "So should you." The kid doesn't move. "You got a place?" Daniel nods toward the dark streets beyond the park. "Apartment, few blocks over." "Then why are you sitting in the rain looking like the world ended?" "Because it did," Daniel thinks. "Because it ended over there and I just keep walking through the ruins. Because I came home and nothing fits anymore. Because the silence is louder than the gunfire ever was. Because I wake up every morning wondering why I got to come home when better men didn't. Because I can't feel anything anymore except this crushing, suffocating weight that never lifts." But he doesn't say any of that. Instead, he stands up, pockets the pills, and looks at this persistent kid who won't stop seeing him. "Go home," he says quietly. "It's not safe out here." "Ain't safe anywhere," the kid replies, and then he's gone, disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness like a ghost. Daniel stands there for a long moment, rain streaming down his face, the bottle heavy in his pocket. Something has shifted, something small. The moment he planned, the ending he scripted, it's been interrupted. Not saved, not fixed, just interrupted. He walks home through the flooded streets, and for the first time in months, he makes it through a night without swallowing the contents of that orange bottle. But the war in his head doesn't stop. It never stops. 3 days later, he sees the kid again. Same park, different bench, afternoon sun breaking through gray clouds. The kid is eating something from a paper bag, careful, methodical, like every bite counts because he doesn't know when the next meal is coming. Daniel almost walks past. Almost. But something pulls him back, some thread he can't quite name. "You hungry?" Daniel asks, standing at a cautious distance. The kid looks up, recognition flickering across his face. "You the crying guy." "I wasn't crying." "Sure." The kid takes another bite. "I'm good." Daniel sits down on the opposite end of the bench, leaves space between them. He pulls out a protein bar from his pocket, one of the dozen he keeps because eating real meals feels like too much effort most days, and sets it on the bench between them. Doesn't say anything, just leaves it there. The kid eyes it. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Everybody wants something." Daniel knows that feeling. The suspicion, the waiting for the other shoe to drop. He spent his first month home waiting for someone to ask him what it was really like over there, to demand the stories he can't tell, to mine his trauma for entertainment. Nobody did. They just smiled and said, "Thank you for your service," and moved on with their lives while he drowned in his. "Not me," Daniel says. "Just a protein bar. Take it or don't." The kid waits another moment, then snatches it quickly, like a stray animal unused to kindness. "Thanks." They sit in silence. Daniel watches the trees sway, focuses on the rustle of leaves, tries to ground himself in the present moment like the VA doctor told him to do before he stopped showing up to appointments. The kid unwraps the bar slowly, makes it last. "My name's Marcus," the kid says eventually. "Daniel. You military?" Daniel's surprised. "How'd you know?" "The way you sit. My uncle was Army. He used to sit like that. Real straight, like somebody might yell at him if he slouched." Daniel almost smiles. Almost. "Yeah, I was. I don't know." "What don't you know?" "Everything," Daniel thinks. "I don't know how to be a person anymore. I don't know how to sleep without seeing blood. I don't know how to walk into a grocery store without calculating exit routes. I don't know how to explain to my ex-wife why I flinched when she touched me. I don't know how to sit at a family dinner while my brother talks about his promotion and my sister shows off her new baby. And I think about the father I shot, who was protecting his family because in that second I couldn't tell if he had a weapon or not. And by the time I knew for sure he was already dying, and his kids were screaming, and I was 23 years old, and I killed someone's father, and I have to live with that forever." "Just don't," Daniel says finally. "What about you? Where's home?" Marcus looks away. "Around." "That's not an answer. Neither was yours." "Fair point." They sit there as the sun drops lower, casting long shadows across the park. Daniel notices the kid keeps scanning the area, never fully relaxed, always watching. He recognizes that hypervigilance. He lives it every day. "You in foster care?" Daniel asks carefully. "Was. Aged out of the last place. System's done with me." "How old are you?" 13. Look younger, I know. Helps sometimes. People more likely to give a kid money than a teenager. 13. Christ. Daniel was playing video games and worrying about math tests at 13. This kid is surviving on the streets, calculating who might help and who might hurt, carrying a weight no child should carry. It's different from what Daniel's been through, but there's a kinship in it. They've both been failed by systems that promised to take care of them. They've both learned that survival means trusting no one. "You got somewhere to sleep?" Daniel asks. "I manage." "Marcus." "I said I manage." The kid's voice hardens. "I don't need some pity project, okay? I'm doing fine." "I wasn't offering pity, I was asking a question." Marcus stands up, defensive walls slamming back into place. "Thanks for the bar. See you around." He walks away before Daniel can respond. Daniel watches him go, sees the slight limp the kid tries to hide, the way he favors his left side. There's a bruise on his neck, barely visible beneath the oversized collar. Daniel recognizes the signs of someone who's been hurt recently and is trying desperately not to show it. He thinks about following, thinks about offering help, but he knows it won't work. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. He learned that the hard way with himself. That night, Daniel lies awake in his apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to his neighbor's television through the thin walls. His mind cycles through the usual horror show, the checkpoint where they stopped the wrong vehicle, the insurgent who looked 16, the translator who worked with them for 3 years before someone put a bomb under his car, the civilian casualties labeled as acceptable losses, the orders that made sense in the moment and haunted him forever after. But tonight there's something else. The kid's face. Those watchful eyes. The question that started it all. Why are you crying? Daniel gets up, paces the small apartment, 4 walls closing in. He opens the bottle of pills, looks at them for a long time, then puts them back in the medicine cabinet. Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But not tonight. Over the next 2 weeks, they see each other 4 more times. Never planned. Just crossing paths in the same neighborhood, the same park, the same invisible margins where broken people drift. Daniel starts carrying extra food. Marcus starts waiting on the same bench around the same time. They don't talk much, but they're there. Daniel learns pieces of Marcus's story in fragments. Mother died when he was 6, no father in the picture. Bounced through 7 foster homes in 7 years. Ran away from the last one when the foster father's hands wandered where they shouldn't. He's been on the streets for 4 months now, sleeping in abandoned buildings, shelters when it's too cold, always moving, never safe. He goes to the library during the day to stay warm, reads everything he can get his hands on, dreams of being a doctor someday even though he knows the odds are stacked impossible against him. Marcus learns less about Daniel, but he's observant. He notices the way Daniel's hand shakes sometimes, the way loud noises make him freeze, the way he never sits with his back to open space, the way his eyes go distant and hollow when sirens pass by. "You got the nightmares?" Marcus asks one afternoon. Daniel tenses. "What?" "My uncle had them. Used to wake up screaming. Broke 3 windows before my aunt left him." "I don't want to talk about it." "Okay." Marcus is quiet for a moment. "He killed himself, 2 years ago. Uncle James. Found him in the garage." Daniel's chest tightens. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." Marcus kicks at a pebble. "He was the only one who ever told me I was smart. Said I could do anything if I just kept going." Then he stopped believing that about himself. The weight of those words settles between them. Daniel thinks about the bottle in his cabinet, the plan he postponed, the dark calculus of pain versus endurance that runs through his mind every single day. "Sometimes it feels like too much," Daniel says quietly. "Like there's no point." "I know. You're 13. So? You think kids don't get tired? You think I don't wake up sometimes wondering why I'm fighting so hard when nobody cares if I'm dead or alive?" Daniel looks at this small, fierce survivor and sees a truth he's been avoiding. The kid is not okay, neither is he. But somehow, sitting here, acknowledging it, makes it slightly less crushing. "I care," Daniel says, and he's surprised to realize he means it. Marcus's eyes go bright for just a second before he blinks it away. "Yeah?" "Yeah." It's a small moment, nothing dramatic, but it matters. They both feel it. The breakthrough comes 3 weeks later, on a night when everything falls apart. Daniel hasn't slept in 4 days. The insomnia has him in its grip, and when he does close his eyes, the flashbacks come in waves. He's back in the desert, the heat pressing down, the smell of burning fuel and copper and fear. He's holding Johnson while his blood soaks into the sand, promising to tell his daughter that her daddy was a hero, knowing it's a lie because there are no heroes, just people trying to survive horrors they'll never be able to explain to anyone who wasn't there. He's spiraling. He knows the signs, the isolation, the irritability, the way his apartment feels like a coffin, the way every small sound makes him want to put his fist through a wall, the way he can't remember the last time he felt anything except this gnawing emptiness. He grabs the bottle. This time, he's sure. This time, no interruption. He's done fighting. He's done pretending. He's done waking up every morning to a life that feels like punishment. He walks to the park, same bench, rain starting to fall again. Fitting, full circle. He sits down, unscrews the cap, pours the pills into his palm, counts them. Enough. More than enough. Don't. Daniel's head snaps up. Marcus is there, standing in the rain, looking smaller than ever, his eyes wide with something Daniel finally recognizes as fear. Go away, kid. No. Marcus steps closer. I know what you're doing. Don't. You don't understand. I understand plenty. I understand what it looks like when somebody's giving up. I've seen it before. I've felt it before. Marcus's voice cracks. Please don't. Daniel's hand closes around the pills. It's better this way. For who? For you? What about the people who need you? Nobody needs me. I do. The words hit like a punch. Daniel looks at this kid who has every reason to be bitter and broken, and instead is standing in the rain begging a stranger to live. Marcus, you're the only person who sees me, Marcus says, tears mixing with rain. You're the only person in 4 months who looked at me like I'm a person, not a problem. You matter. You matter to me, and maybe that's not enough for you, but it's true. And you don't get to just leave. Daniel's hand shakes. The pills blur in his vision. He thinks about Uncle James in the garage. He thinks about Johnson in the sand. He thinks about all the people who couldn't hold on, who couldn't find one more reason to keep breathing. And he thinks about this kid who's fighting against odds Daniel can't imagine, who wakes up every day to uncertainty and danger and still believes that life is worth living. I don't know how to fix this, Daniel whispers. I don't know how to make it stop. Then get help. Real help. Not just suffering alone in your apartment pretending you're fine. I tried. I went to the VA. I sat in their waiting rooms. I talked to their doctors. Nothing changed. So try again. Try different. Try something. Marcus sits down beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. My uncle didn't try. He gave up. And I think about him every day. I think about how he told me I could do anything, and then he decided he couldn't do anything, and that broke something in me. Because if he couldn't make it, how am I supposed to? Daniel closes his eyes. That's not fair. None of this is fair. But we're still here. We're still breathing. That has to mean something. The rain falls harder. Daniel sits there with pills in his hand and a kid beside him and a choice that feels impossible. But then he thinks about what Marcus said. You matter to me. 4 words. Simple, true. And somehow, in this moment, they're enough. He dumps the pills on the ground, watches the rain dissolve them into nothing. His hands shake so badly he has to clench them into fists. I don't know what to do, he says. Call someone. Right now. That crisis line the VA has. Or 911. Or whoever. But call someone. And say what? The truth. That you're hurting. That you need help. That you can't do this alone anymore. Daniel pulls out his phone with trembling fingers. He doesn't want to make the call. Every instinct screams at him to stay silent, to handle it himself, to not show weakness. But he thinks about Marcus, 13 years old, surviving against impossible odds, and he realizes that asking for help isn't weakness. It's the only brave thing left. He makes the call. The next hours blur together. Crisis counselor on the phone, calm voice asking questions, assessing risk, connecting him with emergency mental health services. Marcus stays beside him the whole time, silent but present, a small anchor in the storm. When the crisis team arrives, Daniel looks at the kid. You can't stay out here, he says. I'll be fine. No, you won't. Daniel turns to one of the crisis workers. This kid needs help too. He's homeless, 13, no family. Marcus starts to protest, but Daniel cuts him off. You saved my life tonight, let me help save yours. It takes another hour, more phone calls, more systems engaging, but eventually they connect Marcus with emergency youth services. Not perfect, not a solution, but a start, a safe place for the night, a social worker who actually listens, a possibility. As they're separated, Marcus looks back at Daniel. You gonna be okay? I don't know, Daniel says honestly, but I'm gonna try. That's all I'm asking. Daniel spends 3 days in the psychiatric unit. It's not pleasant. The rooms are sterile. the fluorescent lights harsh, the other patients lost in their own hells. But he talks, really talks, to doctors who specialize in combat trauma, to other veterans who've walked the same dark roads. He hears stories that mirror his own, sees faces that carry the same haunted look, and realizes he's not alone in this. They adjust his medications, connect him with a therapist who understands military culture and moral injury, introduce him to a peer support group that meets twice a week, give him tools for managing flashbacks and insomnia and the rage that sits just beneath his surface. It's not a cure. There is no cure. But it's a framework, a way forward. When he's released, Daniel does something he hasn't done in months. He follows through. He shows up to the first therapy appointment, then the second, then the third. He goes to the group meetings, sits in a circle with other veterans, listens to their pain and shares his own. It's excruciating. Every session feels like ripping open wounds he's tried so hard to keep closed. But slowly, impossibly, it helps. He starts sleeping more than 3 hours a night. The nightmares don't stop, but he learns techniques to ground himself when they come. He practices breathing exercises, uses progressive muscle relaxation, writes in the journal his therapist assigned. He reaches out to one of the guys from his unit, has a conversation that's real instead of performative. He applies for jobs that don't require pretending he's someone he's not. And he thinks about Marcus every single day. He tracks the kid down through the youth services office. Marcus is in a temporary shelter, attending school for the first time in months, working with a counselor on his own trauma. They meet up at the park 2 weeks after that night in the rain. "You look different," Marcus says. "Feel different. A little. Still hard." Daniel sits on their usual bench. "How are you doing?" "Okay, I guess. The shelter's better than the street. School's weird. I'm behind in everything." Marcus pauses. "I was worried about you. I was worried about you too." They fall into a new routine. Daniel meets Marcus twice a week, helps him with homework, talks about life and survival and the long road to healing. He becomes something between a mentor and a friend, but mostly just someone who shows up consistently, who keeps his promises, who sees Marcus as more than his circumstances. Marcus, in turn, keeps Daniel accountable, asks if he's been to therapy, calls him out when he's isolating, reminds him of the reasons to keep going when the dark thoughts creep back in. 3 months pass, then 6. Daniel gets a job at a nonprofit that helps veterans transition back to civilian life. He's not a counselor, just administrative work, but being around people who understand means something. He reconnects with his parents slowly, carefully, with his therapist's help. His mother cries when he finally tells her the truth about how bad it's been. His father, a Vietnam vet himself, shares stories he's kept locked away for 40 years. It's painful and awkward and necessary. Marcus makes progress too, though it's not linear. He has setbacks, runs away from the shelter twice before coming back, gets into a fight at school, struggles with trusting adults who promise to help, but he keeps going, keeps showing up, keeps believing that maybe, possibly, he deserves a future. Daniel becomes his emergency contact, advocates for him with social services, helps him get a scholarship for a summer science program, shows up to his school conferences, becomes the consistent adult presence Marcus has never had. One evening, 9 months after that rainy night, they're sitting on the bench eating takeout when Marcus asks, "Do you still think about it? Giving up?" Daniel considers lying, but they've built their relationship on honesty, even when it hurts. "Sometimes," he admits, "when it's really bad, when the memories are too loud. But then I think about you, about the group, about the reasons to stay. And I call my therapist, or go to a meeting, or text one of the guys from the unit. I don't sit with it alone anymore." "Good." Marcus takes a bite of his burger. "Because I still need you." "I need you too, kid. You ever gonna tell me what happened over there?" Daniel's quiet for a long moment. "Maybe someday, when I can find the words. It's complicated. Most important stuff is, they watch the sun set over the city. 2 people who found each other in the darkness and helped each other toward the light. Not fixed, not healed, but fighting. Together. A year passes. Then another. The work continues. Daniel stays in therapy, attends his group religiously, manages his PTSD with medication and coping strategies, and the hard daily choice to keep moving forward. He has bad weeks. Months where the nightmares return with a vengeance. Days where getting out of bed feels impossible. But he has a support system now. People who check on him. People who understand. People who remind him that surviving is not the same as living, and both are worth fighting for. Marcus finishes middle school, gets accepted into a specialized high school for science, moves into a foster home with a couple who've been through the system themselves and actually give a damn. He still sees Daniel regularly, now as much about wanting to as needing to. They talk about college plans, about Marcus's dream of becoming a pediatrician, about the long odds they've both beaten just by being here. One afternoon, Marcus asks, "You ever think about that night? The rain?" "Every day," Daniel says. "Me too." Marcus is quiet for a moment. "You saved my life too, you know, not just the other way around." "How do you figure?" "You gave me a reason to believe that people can get better, that pain doesn't have to be the end of the story, that asking for help is brave." Marcus looks at him. "You showed me what surviving looks like, the real kind. Not just making it through another day, but actually building something after everything's been destroyed." Daniel's throat tightens. He thinks about the man he was 2 years ago, sitting on a bench with pills in his hand, certain that the world would be better without him. He thinks about how close he came to never knowing this kid, never having this conversation, never discovering that life after trauma is possible even when it doesn't feel like it. "I almost didn't make it," he says quietly. "But you did, because you asked why I was crying. Because you actually answered, even if you didn't say it out loud that first time. You let me see you. That's rare." They sit in comfortable silence as the city moves around them. Daniel thinks about Johnson, about Uncle James, about all the people who couldn't hold on long enough to find their way through. He thinks about the veterans in his support group who are still fighting, about Marcus's resilience in the face of abandonment, about the small, persistent act of choosing life one day at a time. He's not the man he was before the war. He'll never be that person again. But he's becoming someone new, someone who carries scars and still shows up, someone who understands that healing isn't about erasing the past but learning to live with it, to honor the lost while building a future. Marcus is different too, still guarded, still carrying his own wounds, but opening up slowly, letting people in, believing that he matters, planning for a tomorrow that once seemed impossible. Neither of them is fixed. Neither of them is okay. Not really. Not in the way the world defines okay. But they're here. They're breathing. They're fighting. And that, in the end, is everything. Daniel looks at the kid beside him, this fierce survivor who refused to let him disappear, and feels something he hasn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, not joy, but gratitude, purpose, connection. The sense that his life still has meaning, even after everything he's lost, even with everything he carries. "Thank you," Daniel says. Marcus grins. "For what?" "For seeing me, for not giving up, for that night in the rain." "Right back at you, old man." Daniel laughs, actually laughs. It feels strange and good and fragile. "I'm 34. Ancient." Marcus stands up, stretches. "Come on. I got homework and you promised you'd help with my biology project." "The one about human anatomy?" "Yeah. Figured you'd know about that stuff. All the ways bodies break and heal." Daniel stands too, follows the kid out of the park and toward something that resembles normal life, or at least their version of it. A life built from wreckage. A life earned through daily choices to stay, to fight, to believe that tomorrow might be bearable. They're not a fairy tale. They're not a miracle. They're just two people who found each other when they were both drowning and decided to hold on, together. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story reached something in you, if you've ever sat on that bench or known someone who has, please subscribe. These stories matter. Your presence here matters. The conversation about trauma, healing, and the messy reality of survival needs voices. Yours, mine, everyone willing to acknowledge that asking for help is not weakness, but the bravest thing we can do. Click subscribe and join us. You're not alone in this fight.